let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're diving deep into the world of next-gen Layer 2s.
Buckle up.
Yeah, seriously, there's a lot to unpack. We're mainly looking at this awesome report by Masari, Crypto Theses for 2025.
Right.
And there's this other article, too, that goes into the future of L2s. So, everyone's been buzzing about how Layer 2 solutions are going to revolutionize blockchain, right?
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean, for the everyday person?
Yeah.
That's what we're here to figure out.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So one thing that really jumped out at me, reading through all this stuff, is that 2024 saw a ton of applications deciding to build their own, custom Layer 2s.
Yeah, it's a fascinating trend.
Instead of just kind of sticking with the existing Layer 1s.
That's it.
And it's not just small players either. We're talking big names like Frax and Unichain, even Sony and Kraken.
It seems like everyone wants their own dedicated blockchain playground these days.
Right. It's what's the deal with that? Why are they all going custom?
Well, think about it. When you build your own custom Layer 2, you get way more control. For example, you can minimize MEV. That's minor extractable value.
Oh, yeah, MEV. That's a whole other can of worms.
It is. Basically, it's a way for miners to kind of game the system and profit unfairly.
Right.
But with a custom L2, projects can design their transaction ordering to make MEV attacks a lot harder.
So it's about putting the power back in the hands of the users and the developers.
Exactly. And there are other advantages too, like custom L2s let projects tailor their tokenomics to their specific needs.
Oh, right. Tokenomics. That's how their tokens work and gain value, right?
Right. So they have more say over transaction fees and how value is captured within their ecosystem.
Okay, I get it. It's like choosing a tailored suit over a one-size-fits-all outfit.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
You get a perfect fit, right? But it's not all about custom L2s, right? There's a lot more happening in the L2 world beyond Ethereum.
Absolutely. We're seeing a shift away from relying solely on Ethereum's virtual machine, or EVM.
The EVM, that's where smart contracts run, right? Like the software environment.
Precisely. And this year saw the launch of Eclipse and Movement.
Those are both Ethereum L2s, right?
They are. But here's the interesting part. Eclipse uses the Solana Virtual Machine, and Movement uses the MoveVM.
Hold on. So it's different languages now for building on blockchains.
You got it. Eclipse is all about high performance.
Okay.
And they use a centralized sequencer. While Movement, they're envisioning a future where multiple L2s can work together seamlessly.
That's wild. So much innovation happening. It's kind of like the battle of the rollups, too. Optimistic versus zk.
Ah, yes, the race for L2 dominance. Both
Yeah.
Optimistic and zk rollups are trying to solve the same problem. How to scale Ethereum.
Right, make transactions faster and cheaper.
Exactly. Optimistic rollups are a bit easier to develop,
Okay,
but they require these things called fraud proofs to guarantee security.
got it. So zk rollups, they're more complex to build, but offer faster transaction finality.
Exactly, and potentially even higher throughput.
Wow, so it's like a constant balancing act between ease of development and getting that ultimate speed and security.
Ah, it is.
And then there's this project, Mega ETH.
Oh, yeah, Mega ETH is intriguing.
They say they can handle over 100,000 transactions per second.
They are aiming for that, yes. They're using a centralized sequencer to try and achieve those speeds.
I guess that makes sense. But centralization, it always comes with trade-offs, right?
You might gain speed, but potentially sacrifice some censorship resistance.
It's a tough call.
It is a delicate balance.
And speaking of, game changers, Unichain's been making some serious waves.
Yeah, they have with their approach.
What if their success, inspires a bunch of other projects to build their own specialized L2s?
That's a really interesting question. Masari brings that up in their report.
They do, yeah.
Imagine a future where L1s and L2s are hyper-specialized, each tailored for a specific use case.
Like L2s just for gaming.
Exactly. Or DeFi, or supply chain management, you name it.
So instead of one giant blockchain trying to do it all, it's more like a city, right?
It's a city with specialized districts.
Yeah. Interconnected but optimized for their specific function.
Precisely. And that kind of modular approach could actually be the answer to some of the challenges we're seeing with a fragmented blockchain landscape.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got custom L2s, different virtual machines, this whole battle of the rollups.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the L2 world?
Well, app chains are definitely having a moment.
Oh yeah, app chains. Independent blockchains for one specific app or use case.
Exactly. Masari talks about Avalanche and Cosmos.
They did, yeah, though it sounded like they had very different years in 2024.
Avalanche seems to be doing really well. They have this Avalanche 9000 upgrade coming up.
Oh, right, that's supposed to boost their network performance even more.
Exactly. Cosmos, though, had a bit of a rougher year.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Masari said that Atom, their token, hasn't really become like a Schelling point.
Yeah, meaning it hasn't become this central focal point that draws everyone in.
Right, right. It hasn't quite captured the imagination of the ecosystem in the same way as some other tokens.
But Masari also pointed out that Cosmos acquired Skip protocol.
Oh, yeah, the company focused on product and growth.
Right, and they think that could be a catalyst for greater app chain adoption.
Interesting. So there's still hope for Cosmos.
There is. It'll be really interesting to see how things play out in 2025.
It definitely feels like app chains are a trend to watch, for sure. But with all this happening, all these L1s, L2s, app chains, how do we make sure they can all talk to each other?
Yeah, that's a critical question. Interoperability.
Right. Wouldn't it be a nightmare if everything was isolated?
It would. That's where solutions like Optimism Superchain come in.
Ah, the Superchain. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's all about creating a unified experience across the Optimism ecosystem. And one of the ways they're tackling that is through this concept of shared sequencing.
Shared sequencing. Okay, that sounds a little technical. What does that actually mean?
So imagine if you had a single entity that was responsible for ordering transactions across multiple different chains.
Okay.
This shared sequencer can really boost efficiency and make it easier for applications on different chains to interact.
Ah, so it's like having one air traffic control system for all the different blockchain flights, right? Instead of each one being its own island.
That's a great analogy.
Things can actually work together smoothly.
Exactly.
But how do we make sure users aren't overwhelmed by all this complexity?
Well, that's where chain abstraction comes in.
Chain abstraction.
Right? It's the idea of hiding all those technical details behind a user-friendly interface.
Kind of like a universal remote control for any blockchain, no matter the underlying technology.
Exactly. You don't need to understand how each chain works. You just interact with it seamlessly through this single interface.
It's like the easy button for blockchain.
That's a good way to put it.
Awesome. So I can move assets between different chains, use different apps, all without having to be a blockchain expert.
That's the goal. Masari even included this really cool map of the chain abstraction ecosystem in their report.
You did, yeah. It shows all the different players in this space.
It does.
Okay, so we've got custom L2s, multiple virtual machines, this battle of the rollups, app chains gaining traction, the quest for interoperability.
Yeah.
Anything else we're missing?
Well, we can't forget about zero-knowledge technology.
ZK.
Masari believes it'll be a total game changer in 2025.
Everyone keeps saying that. But I gotta admit, it still sounds a bit magical to me. What makes it so revolutionary?
Well, at its core, ZK allows you to prove something is true without revealing the information that makes it true.
Okay.
So imagine proving you're over 18 without showing your ID.
Okay.
Or proving you have enough money in your bank account for a loan without revealing your balance or your transaction history.
It's like a magic decoder ring that unlocks the truth without giving away the secret message.
Huh. I like that.
So how does that apply to blockchain?
Well, for one thing, we could have truly private transactions on the blockchain. No more publicly visible transaction histories.
That's huge for people who value their privacy.
It is. And what about scalability? With ZK, you can bundle thousands, even millions of transactions together and prove they're all valid with a single proof.
Right.
So you drastically reduce the amount of data that needs to be processed and stored.
Making blockchains much faster and more efficient.
Exactly.
ZK sounds like it could be the key to, unlocking blockchain's true potential.
It really could be.
But Masari did mention some challenges, too.
Right. Generating and verifying those ZK proofs, it can be pretty computationally intensive.
Especially for complex stuff.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of progress in making ZK more efficient.
I remember Masari highlighted Succinct and RISC0.
Yeah, they were impressed with their work.
What are they doing?
Succinct, they're building a decentralized network specifically for generating and verifying ZK proofs.
Oh, cool.
Think of it like cloud computing, but just for ZK.
Ah.
So it should make ZK much more accessible to developers and projects.
Awesome. And what about RISC0?
They're taking a slightly different approach. They're building a universal zk virtual machine.
A universal one.
So developers could write ZK applications in any programming language.
Oh, that's cool. It removes that barrier of having to learn a specialized ZK language.
Exactly. It opens up a ton of possibilities.
It's like they're building the Rosetta Stone as ZK, right?
I love that. Making it understandable for everyone.
So all these advancements, ZK, L2s, they're all super cool.
They are.
But what does it actually mean for, like, the average person?
That's a great question. I think for you, the listener, it means a future where your digital life is more private, more secure, and way more efficient.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Imagine a world where you have complete control over your data.
Okay.
Where you can make transactions without worrying about censorship,
Yeah.
and where you have access to these amazing new decentralized applications.
That are faster, cheaper, and more user-friendly than ever before.
Exactly.
It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually happening right now.
It is. And as we've seen, the blockchain space is evolving at an incredible pace.
For sure.
What seems like science fiction today could be reality tomorrow.
I love it. This has been such a fascinating deep dive so far.
We've only scratched the surface.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's still so much more to explore.
There is. But we'll have to save that for next time.
Oh, yeah, there's way more to come.
Definitely. We're just getting started. Welcome back to our deep dive into Layer 2 solutions.
It's crazy to think about all the innovation happening right now. Like, every week there's some new breakthrough.
It really is a dynamic space. And as we touched on in part 1, one of the most exciting things happening is zero-knowledge technology, or ZK.
Yeah, ZK. Everyone's talking about it. But I got to be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on the details. Like, what makes ZK so special?
So, at its core, ZK lets you prove something is true without revealing the underlying information that makes it true.
Okay.
Think of it this way. You could prove you're old enough to vote, like you're over 18, without actually showing your ID. Or you could prove you have enough money in your bank account to qualify for a loan, but you wouldn't have to reveal your actual balance or your transaction history.
So it's kind of like a magic wand that verifies info without giving away the secrets.
I like that analogy. And when you apply this to blockchain, things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
What kind of interesting are we talking about?
Well, for one, ZK could completely change how we think about privacy on the blockchain. Imagine making transactions where no one knows the details except you and the person you're sending to.
So no more public transaction histories.
Exactly. Especially for people who value privacy, that's a huge deal.
It is. And what about scalability? You know, that issue so many blockchains have with handling lots of transactions.
ZK can help with that too. With ZK, you can basically bundle thousands or even millions of transactions together.
Okay.
And then you prove they're all valid with this one, small proof.
So it's like compressing the data.
Exactly.
Right.
Which means you need to process and store way less data.
Making blockchains much faster and more efficient.
Precisely.
Sounds like ZK could be the answer to, like, so many of blockchain's biggest challenges.
They really could.
But Masari's report did mention some challenges, right?
Yeah, of course. One of the main ones is that generating and verifying those ZK proofs can be pretty computationally intensive.
Especially for, like, really complex operations.
Right. But the good news is there's been a ton of progress in making ZK more efficient.
Masari seemed pretty impressed with Succinct and RISC0. What are they doing that's so cool?
Well, Succinct is building a decentralized network specifically for generating and verifying those ZK proofs.
Okay.
Think of it like, cloud computing, but just for ZK.
Oh, got it.
This could make ZK way more accessible and easier to use for developers and projects.
That makes sense. And RISC0.
They're tackling a slightly different problem. They're building a universal zk virtual machine.
A universal one.
So that developers could write ZK applications using any programming language they want.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it means they wouldn't have to learn these, specialized ZK programming languages.
Looks like removing a huge barrier to entry, right?
Exactly. And it opens up a ton of possibilities for what people can build with ZK.
And it's like they're creating the Rosetta Stone of ZK,
Yeah.
making it understandable for everyone.
Ha! I love that.
So we've got all these advancements, ZK, L2s, it's all super exciting.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a second. What does this all mean for, the everyday person?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
I think for the average person, this means a future where your digital life is more private, more secure, and more efficient.
Okay, I like that.
Think about it. A world where you have total control over your data, where you can make transactions without worrying about censorship,
Wow.
and where you have access to all these incredible new decentralized applications.
And they're faster and cheaper and more user-friendly than ever before.
Exactly.
It almost sounds too good to be true, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, right? But it's happening now. And as we've seen, the blockchain space moves incredibly fast.
Things change so quickly.
What seems like science fiction today could be reality tomorrow.
I love it. This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive so far.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
There's so much to talk about.
There is, and we've got even more to cover.
Can't wait to hear what else you've got.
We'll stick around for part 3, where we'll look at the bigger picture and what all these trends mean for the future of blockchain.
Sounds good. I'm ready. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on the future of Layer 2s.
We've gone deep on the tech itself, but now I think it's time to zoom out a bit.
Yeah, look at the bigger picture.
Right. Think about what all this means, for the future.
And it feels like we're at this, turning point.
Yeah, it does.
Where all this tech is starting to, really reshape the digital world.
It is. And one of the biggest trends we keep seeing is this move toward, more and more decentralization.
Yeah, that's right.
We talked about custom L2s and AppChains and how that's making it harder for any one person or group to, control the whole ecosystem.
It's kind of like the original vision of the internet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A distributed network where power spread out.
Right. Not just in the hands of a few.
And as we move away from these, big monolithic blockchains and toward more modular and interoperable systems, I think that decentralization is only going to accelerate.
I agree.
And that's awesome for, user empowerment.
It is.
But more decentralization also means more challenges, right?
Of course.
How do we make sure this new blockchain world is, easy to use?
Yeah, user-friendly.
For everyone, not just the tech-savvy folks.
That's a really important point. We talked about chain abstraction,
Right.
which helps by, hiding the complex stuff.
Right.
But it's bigger than that. We need better tools,
Yeah.
educational resources.
So more people can participate.
Exactly. And as that happens, as the experience gets better, more people will adopt blockchain.
Seems like everyone's exploring it these days, right?
They are.
Finance, healthcare, gaming, supply chains.
It's a revolution.
It is. But every revolution has its, challenges, right?
It does.
What do you think are some of the biggest hurdles we need to clear as we move forward?
Well, security is always a big one for me.
Sure.
Especially as we deal with these more, complex and decentralized systems.
Right.
We got to make sure they're strong.
Absolutely. Robust, resilient.
Right. Resilient to attacks.
And then there's scalability.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Can these next Gen L2s, can they really handle, a ton of transactions?
The massive volume a truly global blockchain ecosystem would need.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about zk's potential there.
We did.
But it's still early days for that tech.
It is.
And then, of course, there's the whole regulatory landscape.
Right. Always got to think about that.
Governments and regulators are still figuring out how to approach all this.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Finding that balance, right?
Uh-huh.
Between encouraging innovation and, making sure things are being developed responsibly.
We need smart regulation, I think.
We do.
To protect people.
And the whole system.
Right. But without, stifling creativity.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. So looking ahead to 2025 and beyond,
it's going to be wild.
the blockchain space, it's going to be a wild ride.
A lot of growth, a lot of disruption.
But ultimately, I'm optimistic.
Me too.
I think blockchain can create a better world.
A more decentralized world.
Right.
More equitable.
Or more transparent.
Yeah. A world where technology empowers people.
Creates new opportunities.
And builds a better future.
Well said.
Thanks.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive on the future of Layer 2s.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I know I did. Thanks for joining us.
And remember, the blockchain world's always changing.
Always evolving.
So stay curious.
Stay informed.
Keep exploring.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.